Welcome to The Explainer. We're surrounded by words and stories every single day, but have you ever stopped to think about where they actually come from? Today, we're doing just that. We're going to peel back the layers on the surprising origins of the things we say and the stories we tell, uncovering the secret history that's hiding in plain sight.
All right, so let's just dive right in. This whole thing really kicked off with a simple question I saw pop up in an online forum, a question that gets right to the heart of how we all communicate.
This quote, it just nails it, right? This person was talking about one specific saying, but it captures this feeling we've all had. We're swimming in a sea of language and stories that we use all the time, but whose origins? Total mystery. We just say them. And that online discussion, well, it was a goldmine, just filled with all these examples of stuff our parents or grandparents used to say, phrases that just became part of the wallpaper of our language. But one in particular, really sparked this incredibly vivid and popular explanation.
That's the one. Colder than a brass monkey. As soon as this came up, somebody chimed in with this fascinating and honestly really cool-sounding story about where it came from. It's a story a lot of us have probably heard and maybe even believed.
And this is where things get really interesting, because it highlights this constant battle, right? The battle between a good story and the real story. We love a clever explanation, something that just clicks. But how does a story that sounds good stack up against what actually happened? Just look at this. The difference is night and day. On one hand, you have the folktale. It's fantastic. You can picture it perfectly. A brass plate on a ship, it gets freezing cold, the metal shrinks, and boom, cannonballs start rolling everywhere. It's memorable, it sounds scientific, and yeah, it's completely 100% made up. The US Navy itself has said, nope, not true.
So, that leads to the big question, doesn't it? If the popular stories, the ones that feel so right, can be totally off base, where do the real answers come from? Well, you're not going to find them in a fun anecdote. You find them through intense, dedicated, and frankly, pretty expensive scholarship.
And this is what that kind of scholarship actually looks like. It's not just a clever story someone came up with. It's a massive, serious academic effort. Like the Gershom Project from the University of Cambridge. Their whole goal was to scientifically trace the influence of Vikings on the English language. They weren't trying to tell a good story, they were trying to find a truth.
And just look at this number. This is the funding that project got, over £345,000. That figure tells you everything you need to know. It shows you the incredible scale and rigor it takes to do real etymology, which is a whole different world from just guessing on the internet.
So what did all that work and money find? Well, the Gershom Project showed us just how deep that Viking influence runs. Some of our most basic, everyday words are actually cultural artifacts they left behind. Words like sky, egg, leg, even the pronouns they and their. Think about that. We didn't figure that out from a fun story. We figured it out through years of painstaking, evidence-based research.
Okay, so let's take this idea and run with it. This whole process of digging for the source code, of looking past the easy explanation to find the real origin, it doesn't just work for single words. It applies to entire worlds, to huge cultural phenomena that have literally shaped how we see everything.
I'm talking about the Twilight Zone. You see, to really get where this iconic show came from, you can't just look at the date it first aired. You have to go deeper. You have to understand its creator, Rod Serling, and his own personal history, his trauma as a paratrooper in World War II, his constant fights with network censors. That became the show's actual blueprint.
So, Serling had all these powerful things he wanted to say about the world, about racism, about the paranoia of the Cold War. But every time he tried, the network censors would shut him down. So what did he do? He got clever. He built a Trojan horse. The Twilight Zone was his way of smuggling those explosive ideas past the guards and right into people's living rooms.
In this quote from Serling himself, it's pure genius. He figured out that he could use fantasy to speak truth to power. He could use aliens and monsters and strange dimensions to talk about us. The network gatekeepers were looking for controversy in stories about a specific town or a specific politician, but they completely missed it when a Martian said the exact same thing.
You want to see this Trojan horse in action? Watch The Monsters Are Due on Maple Street. The story on the surface is about aliens causing a blackout in a suburban neighborhood. But the episode isn't really about aliens at all. It's a blistering commentary on the Red Scare, a perfect allegory for how quickly fear and suspicion can make a community tear itself to pieces.
And this closing narration says it all. This right here reveals the show's true origin. It wasn't just a love for science fiction.
It was born from Rod Serling's deeply held belief, a belief forged in the horror of war and the frustration of censorship, that the most terrifying monsters aren't from some other planet. They are our own fears, our own prejudices, our own suspicions. So what's the big takeaway here? Well, whether we're talking about a simple phrase like brass monkey or a legendary TV show that defined a genre, understanding the origin, the real source code, it just completely transforms how we see it. It adds a whole new layer of depth and meaning.
And this really breaks it down nicely. Sometimes we understand things through folk etymology, those great stories that are fun to tell but might not be true. Other times it takes rigorous evidence-based research. And sometimes you have to dig into a creator's life to understand their art. But in every case, knowing the why behind our culture gives it so much more power.
So in the end, looking for the origin story isn't just about collecting facts. It makes us think more critically. It makes us more informed. It connects us more deeply to the world around us. And it makes you wonder, right? What other secret histories are just waiting to be discovered, hiding in plain sight in the words you use and the shows you watch every single day?